Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Mhm.
We always end up covering some fascinating stories, but this one's something else.
Yeah, this one's really exceptional.
We're going to be looking into the life and crimes of Jack Harold Jones,
A convicted murderer.
and the twists and turns in this case are honestly mind-blowing.
Yeah. And we've got a lot to work with today, too. Excerpts from his Wikipedia article, some really in-depth news articles, court documents. Uh, it all paints a pretty intricate picture, to say the least.
Yeah, a whole stack of sources to sort through.
Exactly. And what I think is really compelling about this case is that it spans decades.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple states. And it hinges on a series of events that almost seem too crazy to be true. Like, you couldn't make this stuff up.
No.
We're going to see how seemingly unrelated cases, separated by time and distance, ultimately converge in a way that, honestly, nobody could have predicted.
It all starts, though, in Florida, 1983,
Okay.
with the murder of Regina Harrison. It seemed like a pretty open and shut case at first. They had a suspect, Ronald Henry Stewart. He was seen with Harrison, fit the description that witnesses had given, and even had a black bike like the one seen near the crime scene.
Pretty damning evidence.
Right.
It really did seem that way at the time. But while Stewart did confess to the crime, his fingerprints didn't actually match the ones found at the scene.
Oh, wow.
So, to avoid a potential death penalty sentence, he decided to enter into a plea deal.
Okay.
Basically, a legal agreement where he pleads guilty in exchange for a less severe sentence, 50 years in prison.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Even after decades behind bars, Stewart never recanted his confession.
So right off the bat, we have this, huge question mark hanging over the case. Did
Absolutely.
he actually do it, or was he pressured to confess? And this is where things get really, really interesting, because this seemingly straightforward case sets the stage for a shocking revelation years down the line.
Precisely. But before we jump ahead to that, the story shifts focus. Fast forward to 1991, back in Florida, with the brutal murder of Lorianne Barrett, a tourist visiting the state.
Okay.
Despite having a very detailed composite sketch, even including specific tattoos that the suspect had, the case went cold.
Oh, wow.
It seemed like the perpetrator had just vanished.
Yeah, and they never found him.
Not for a while, no. But then, in 1995, in Arkansas, we finally meet Jack Harold Jones.
Okay.
And he enters the picture in a truly horrifying way. He attacks Mary Phillips and her 11-year-old daughter, Lacey.
Oh, gosh.
And this is where we start to see the chilling premeditation and calculated violence that marked a lot of his crimes. He came prepared, gloves, wire, a BB gun. It's honestly pretty disturbing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sends chills down your spine just thinking about it.
Absolutely. Now, this attack, particularly on young Lacey, was brutal.
Gosh.
The officers who first responded to the scene actually believed that Lacey was dead because her injuries were so severe.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really remarkable that she survived, and it was her testimony that became crucial to the case.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Even after that horrible experience, she was able to identify Jones, which ultimately led to his conviction for Mary Phillips's murder.
And I'm assuming that's why he was given the death sentence.
Correct. But here's where the story takes a turn that honestly nobody could have predicted. All of this is happening while the Lorianne Barrett case in Florida is still unsolved.
Right.
Then, years later, in 2003, something seemingly routine happened, and it changed everything.
Okay.
Remember, at this point, Jones is already on death row in Arkansas. As is standard procedure, his DNA was collected and entered into the national database. And that's when the bombshell dropped. Jones's DNA matched evidence from the Lorianne Barrett murder scene in Florida. It's like a ghost from the past suddenly reappeared, linking these seemingly unrelated cases. It really highlights how powerful DNA technology can be. I mean, it can crack open cold cases years, even decades later.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's a complete game changer, no doubt. This DNA match led to Jones being convicted for Barrett's murder as well. He received a life sentence in Florida, in addition to his death sentence in Arkansas. But this is nowhere near the end of the story.
Oh,
In fact, this is just the beginning of another chapter, one that completely redefines our understanding of this entire case.
so what happens next?
Well, right before his execution in 2017, Jones gives his sister a letter with very specific instructions. Don't open this until a year after I'm gone.
It's like something straight out of a suspense novel, right?
Absolutely. And the contents of that letter were explosive.
What did he say?
Jones confessed to the 1983 murder of Regina Harrison.
The very first case we talked about.
Exactly. The one that seemed solved but left us with so many unanswered questions.
Oh my gosh.
And he didn't just confess, he provided specific details that only the killer could have known. This threw a very dark shadow over the entire case.
And that brings us back to Ronald Stewart, the man who took that plea deal all those years ago. This confession just, throws everything we thought we knew into question.
Right. And remember, Stewart always maintained his innocence, but his plea deal, even though it meant spending decades in prison, kept him off death row.
So what happened to Stewart after the letter came out?
Well, this bombshell confession prompted authorities to exhume Jones's body, conduct their own DNA testing. What they found was staggering.
They matched?
The DNA matched, yes. This led to the official exoneration of Ronald Stewart after more than 30 years of wrongful imprisonment.
Wow. That is unbelievable.
It's a stark reminder of how eyewitness testimony can be faulty and just how powerful DNA evidence can be to not only convict the guilty, but also clear the names of the innocent.
It's a crazy thought that he could have died in prison for a crime he didn't even commit. This whole thing just sends shockwaves through the system, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
It raises so many questions. How could this even happen? What does this mean for other cases that might have relied on faulty eyewitness accounts?
Exactly. And we have to consider the impact this had on both Stewart and Harrison's families. You have Stewart, who had decades of his life stolen from him, and then Harrison's family, who believed for years that the man responsible for her death was behind bars. It's tragic, you know? It's a complex situation that reveals just how deeply flawed the justice system can be.
I mean, it's just hard to even fathom what Ronald Stewart and Regina Harrison's families must have gone through.
Right.
You know, on one hand, you have Stewart being cleared after decades of being wrongfully imprisoned.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Harrison's family has to grapple with the fact that the real killer was out there.
Right.
Committing other horrific acts.
Absolutely.
While an innocent man was behind bars.
Yeah. It really is a stark reminder of the ripple effects that wrongful convictions have.
Oh, yeah.
Not only on the individual who was wrongly accused, but also on their families, the victims' families, and society as a whole, you know?
Right.
These cases, they really erode public trust in the justice system and can just leave this lasting sense of injustice.
For sure.
Uncertainty, you know?
And it's crazy to think, you know, the more I think about these types of cases, the more I realize just how much we rely on technology now.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically DNA evidence.
Absolutely.
To uncover the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in this case, if it weren't for advancements in DNA technology,
right,
Ronald Stewart might have died in prison for a crime he didn't commit.
It's true.
And Jack Carroll Jones might have taken his secrets to the grave.
Yeah, DNA technology has been like a monumental shift in criminal justice.
For sure.
It's not just about identifying perpetrators, but also about ensuring accuracy and accountability within the system, and this case with its delayed justice.
Right.
Posthumous confession, it really highlights these complex ethical and legal questions surrounding DNA evidence.
Speaking of that posthumous confession,
right,
it's a pretty unique situation, wouldn't you say?
It really is.
I mean, we've got this man already convicted of murder on death row.
Yeah.
Confessing to another murder years later.
Right.
From beyond the grave, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It brings up a whole host of questions like,
absolutely.
Was it genuine remorse?
Yeah.
Was he trying to manipulate the system? Or was there some other motive we haven't even considered?
Yeah. It's a fascinating dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, on the surface, Jones's confession appears to be an attempt to, like, right a wrong, you know,
right,
offer some solace to Regina Harrison's family. But it also kind of throws a wrench into the system, you know?
Yeah.
After all, he was already facing execution for other crimes.
Exactly.
What was the point?
Right. And legally speaking, what happens when a confession comes after someone is already dead?
That's a good question.
Does it carry the same weight?
Mm-hmm.
Can it be used to overturn convictions or open new investigations?
Right. I mean, legally speaking, a posthumous confession doesn't automatically overturn a conviction.
Oh.
Or guarantee that a case will be reopened. There's a lot of scrutiny involved.
Yeah.
Verifying the authenticity of the confession, corroborating the details. Mm-hmm.
And examining the potential motives behind it.
So it's not just a matter of taking the confession at face value.
No.
There's a whole process of investigation and verification that needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Which, when you think about it, makes sense. You wouldn't want to overturn a conviction.
Yeah.
Or open a new investigation solely based on a confession.
Right.
That could be unreliable or even fabricated.
Exactly. The legal system is built on this foundation of evidence and due process.
Mm-hmm.
even posthumous confessions need to be carefully examined within that framework.
This whole situation really makes you think about the balance between seeking justice for victims
Right.
and ensuring that the legal process is fair and
Yeah.
accurate.
Uh,
It's not always easy, and sometimes, as we see in this case, it can take years,
Absolutely.
even decades, to get to the truth.
It's true, and it's important to remember that while DNA technology has revolutionized criminal justice,
Yeah,
it's not a perfect solution.
right.
It's a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and like any tool, it can be misused.
Yeah. Or misinterpreted.
Mm,
That's why we need skilled investigators, forensic analysts,
right.
legal professionals who understand the complexities of DNA evidence
Yeah.
and can apply it responsibly
Right.
within the context of each case.
And we can't forget about the human element either, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
There are so many dedicated people working behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that justice is served. People like the investigators who never gave up on Lori Ann Barrett's case.
Yeah.
The forensic analysts who meticulously analyzed the DNA evidence.
Yeah.
And the legal teams who fought for Ronald Stewart's exoneration.
It's their dedication and commitment
Yeah.
that makes a difference in these complex cases.
Yeah, for sure.
Technology plays a vital role, but it's ultimately the dedication and expertise
Mm.
of individuals within the justice system
Right.
that drive these cases forward
Yeah.
and strive to make sure that the truth prevails.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact of wrongful convictions,
Right.
the role of DNA technology,
Hmm.
the legal intricacies of posthumous confessions.
Yeah,
But what about Jack Harold Jones himself?
right.
Who was this man who committed such horrific acts, and what led him down this path of violence and destruction?
Yeah, that's a question that kind of haunts this entire story.
It does.
Trying to understand the motivations and psychological factors that drive someone to commit such heinous acts.
Right.
It's a question that really has no easy answers, but we do know some things about Jones's background.
Okay.
He had a troubled childhood marked by abuse and addiction.
It's unfortunately a pattern we see in a lot of criminal cases.
It is. It's a sad reality that often individuals who commit violent crimes have their own history of trauma,
Yeah.
suffering, and while that no way excuses their actions,
Right.
it does make you wonder about the cyclical nature of violence.
For sure.
The societal factors that contribute to these patterns.
It's a complex issue with no easy solutions. I think understanding those underlying factors is crucial if we want to address the root causes of crime and work towards a more just and equitable society.
It's true.
In this case, with all of its complexities and unsettling revelations, really highlights the interconnectedness of individual actions, societal issues,
Yeah,
and the pursuit of justice.
absolutely.
It's a case that will stay with me for a long time.
I think it will for me too.
And I think it has a lot to teach us about the fragility of the legal system
Absolutely.
and the importance of continuous evaluation and improvement.
It's a case that reminds us that justice is a journey, not a destination, and that the pursuit of truth and accountability requires constant vigilance, dedication, and a willingness to question everything we think we know.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the life and crimes of Jack Harold Jones, there's one question that just keeps coming back to me.
Yeah.
Could there be more victims out there?
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
It is.
Given his pattern of violence and the fact that he moved between states, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And remember, we only discovered that connection to Lori Ann Barrett's murder years after his initial conviction.
Right, right.
And that was thanks to advancements in DNA technology.
That's what I find so unsettling about this whole case. It makes you wonder how many other cold cases are out there just waiting for that one piece of evidence.
Right.
Or that one technological breakthrough.
To finally bring some closure to the families.
And hold the perpetrators accountable.
It's a reminder that justice is often a long and winding road.
Yeah.
And even though we've made significant strides in forensic science and investigative techniques, there's always more we can do
Right.
to ensure that no case is forgotten
Exactly.
and no victim is denied justice.
Well, we do know that authorities are still actively investigating whether Jones might be connected to other unsolved crimes.
That's right.
It's got to be like trying to put together this giant jigsaw puzzle where you're missing some of the pieces
Right.
and you don't even know what the complete picture is supposed to look like.
It's a real testament to the dedication and perseverance of law enforcement.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, these are people committed to seeking the truth no matter how long it takes or how difficult the path might be.
Right.
I mean, they're poring over old case files, re-examining evidence.
Oh.
They're exploring every possible lead,
Yeah.
hoping to find just one connection
Yeah.
that might link Jones to other unsolved crimes.
It's a daunting task for sure.
It is.
But the potential reward, it's immense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine the relief and closure it would bring to families who have been living with these unanswered questions for years.
Right.
Decades even.
It really is amazing work. Every case represents a human life,
Yeah.
a story that deserves to be told. And the search for justice should never be abandoned. You know, while the focus in these investigations is often on finding the perpetrator,
Right.
we can't forget about the victims and their families.
Absolutely.
I mean, their lives have been irrevocably altered by these tragedies.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that behind the headlines and the legal proceedings,
Yeah.
there are real people grappling with immense pain, loss, and trauma.
And for those who have had loved ones wrongfully convicted, like Ronald Stewart,
Right.
there's the added layer of injustice and the long road to healing.
It's crucial that we as a society support and advocate for both the victims and those who have been wrongly accused.
I agree.
We need to create a criminal justice system that's not only effective in catching criminals, but also fair, equitable, and committed to upholding the rights of everyone involved.
This deep dive has been a roller coaster of emotions for me.
I can imagine.
There's the shock and horror of the crimes themselves,
Right.
the intrigue of all the twists and turns,
Yeah.
the frustration of the wrongful conviction,
Uh-huh.
but ultimately a glimmer of hope that technology and the unwavering pursuit of justice can bring some measure of resolution.
It's a case that reminds us that justice is never really over.
Yeah,
There are always lessons to be learned, systems to be improved, and stories that need to be told.
absolutely.
And perhaps, most importantly, it reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit and that enduring power of hope, even in the face of unspeakable tragedy.
And as we finish up here, I think it's important for everyone listening to remember that we each have a role to play
Yeah,
in advocating for a more just and equitable world.
absolutely.
Whether it's supporting organizations, educating ourselves, or even just having these tough conversations,
Right.
we can all contribute.
Awareness, empathy, and commitment to justice are absolutely essential if we want to create a society where tragedies like these are less likely to occur,
Yeah.
and a society where the pursuit of truth and accountability is unwavering.
This deep dive has given us all a lot to think about. It's a reminder that the quest for justice is ongoing,
Absolutely.
and that even when the legal proceedings are over, the human impact of these cases continues.
It really does.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.